Hello, my mysterious quilty friends. In this video, we are going to talk about making flying geese because in this quilt, we're going to have a lot of flying geese, although I'm not telling you where they go and I'm not telling you if they mean anything. But every month, well, most months, we're going to be making a set of flying geese in different colors. The first month, it's going to be in green, but this video, we're going to use peach because peach and navy blue are high contrast, and I'm hoping it will make it easier for you to see. When we make flying geese, we're going to need this equipment. You're going to need large squares in a color. They're 7 3/4 inches. And for every set of flying geese, you're going to need 4 of your background squares that you cut in the first month, and you need 4 squares that are cut 4 1/4 inches, okay? We got these dimensions from 2 different places. In your directions for your wing clipper ruler, there's everything we're gonna do today is in these instructions, and there's a chart in here that tells you how big to cut squares. The problem with this chart is this is the nudge method. They want you to nudge your squares in an indeterminate distance from the corners of your large colored square. Instead, we've used this chart, and this is no nudge flying geese. And this means you can line your squares up like you normally do. So you want to mark this line right here, 3 by 6, 3 1/2 by 6 1/2, 4 1/4, 7 3/4. This line is what we're going to be using quite a bit throughout our time with the mystery quilt. This first line says finished unit size, and that means finished in your final quilt. There's your first clue. When we finish this and you sew your flying geese into the finished quilt, they're going to finish at 3 inches by 6 inches, okay? And unfinished means how big they are before they're sewn into the quilt. So those green flying geese you saw a minute ago are all 3 1/2 by 6 1/2 because they haven't been sewn in yet, okay? So it tells you you need small squares cut 4 1/4 and your large square cut 7 3/4. The good news for you guys is your large squares are going to be pre-cut for you. And if you've already done your work for month 1, you have all of your background squares already cut up. The other equipment you need is your wing clipper ruler. You need a friction pen or another marking device. A bright color is best because we've all got dark backgrounds. And then we have some optional equipment. We have a magic wand, which is optional, but it is going to be, it's only $7 or $8 in the shop, and you're gonna see it's gonna make your life easier, but if you already have one, go grab it. If you don't, you can still work on your squares without it this month. I also have a fabric folding pen. This helps your squares lay flat. I got out my stiletto because sometimes I have trouble with fading at the end, and I'll show you how to use this. And then I always have my 3 by 12 ruler around because a smaller ruler makes things easier. I also have pins, my rotary cutter, a cutting mat, my iron, and just all my general sewing supplies, okay? So to get started, you're gonna grab your background squares and you're gonna lay your colored square aside for the moment. The first thing you're gonna do, excuse me, is draw lines on your background squares. And I know these are going to be hard to see, and I'm sorry for that. If you have your magic wand, what you're going to do is take the center line that's scored into your ruler, into your magic wand, and you're going to line it up with one corner here and the other corner here. So that line that's scored is going straight down the middle of your square from corner to corner. You're going to grab your friction pen and you're going to draw a line on either side of your magic wand. So your magic wand is a 1/2 inch wide, and it is exactly 1/4 inch from the center scored line to either side of the ruler or of the magic wand. And so what I've done is drawn lines down the center, and I know they're kind of hard to see. I can see them, but there's not a great oh, you can see them, good. Okay, if you don't have a magic wand, here's the way you're gonna make this work.
By the way, can you use a magic wand to cut?
No, never use a magic wand to cut. It is not wide enough and you will cut your finger off.
It's also not designed to be cut.
Yeah, it's not designed to be cut with, but it's not wide enough. If you do this, look how your fingers are always hanging over the edges. And if you take a rotary cutter, and there goes the edge of your fingers.
Plus you'll ruin the edge of your magic wand.
Yeah.
Real fast.
And the edge of your finger. Okay, if you don't have a magic wand, grab a ruler. Any ruler that has a 1/4 inch marking on it will do. The first thing you're going to do is lay that ruler down the very center of your square from corner to corner and draw a line. So you're marking the line, and now this mimics that center line on your magic wand, okay? So you've got your line drawn there. Now you take the 1/4 inch line on your ruler and you're going to line that up on the line you just drew. So I know it's hard to see my orange line on there, but my 1/4 inch line is on my orange line I just drew. And now we're going to draw another line. Okay, and then we're going to take it and we're going to do the same thing again on the other side. Line your 1/4 inch up on your orange line, that center line, and then mark again. So this method you end up with 3 lines on your square.
And a little more room for error.
Yeah. So see, there's the center line, and then I've got a line on either side. You're gonna sew on those 2 outside lines. Don't sew on that center line. Okay, now you're gonna grab your large colored square. Again, this is 7 3/4 inches square, and in the months when you're making flying geese, you will get these pre-cut from us. You shouldn't have to do anything. You should just be able to use them, okay? You're going to take 2 of your background squares and you're gonna line them up, raw edges together on the edges.
This is the no nudge part.
Yes, this is the no nudge part. If you nudge, you have to scoot these in, only she doesn't tell you exactly how far, and I had a lot of trouble with it. Okay, so what I've done is I've got these edges lined up here, and I've got my lines lined up. It's a straight line from here all the way down. I always throw a couple of pins in these because,
Me too. It's too hard to get it on the machine.
yeah, it's only about, I don't know, 1.5 feet from here to the machine, but it may as well be a mile. I always end up moving them. Can't grab pins today either. So put a couple of pins in so they stay put, and we're gonna go to the machine and we're gonna sew on the outside lines on both.
Okay, and what did you do in the very center?
I was gonna talk about that at the machine so they
okay.
could see it. I've got the top one over this bottom one. I'll show you why. So we're going to the machine, and my machine is set up for 1/4 inch piecing. I've got Aurifil thread on here in the color Iris. That's the color I used for the entire quilt. I've got my HP foot on, and I've got my needle going through the center of the HP foot. You want this is the Janome version of a 1/4 inch foot, or I'm sorry, a scant 1/4 foot. But you want your 1/4 inch foot on there. Actually, no, you don't. Any foot where you can see.
Can't use a
You're gonna-
1/4 inch foot because
No, you can't. Yeah, that was a dumb thing to say. You want any foot where you can see and sew down a line. Now, what Mom was hinting at a second ago was this. I've got this top square over the bottom. If I had my squares lined up like this, then when I got here, my foot could get caught underneath, and that's a big pain. So if we do it like this, now my squares, I'm just gonna sew directly from that one onto the next one without any problems, and nobody needs to worry about them overlapping. It's gonna be fine, I promise. Okay, so we're gonna sew down the line. I've got my stitch length is set at 1.8. I am gonna pull my pins out. And now here, Make sure you sew smoothly onto the next line, onto the next square. And when you get to the end, if anybody has trouble keeping your ends even, this is where, you can grab your stiletto and you can use it to hold this down. And you can get very close, but don't, if you hit your needle, if your needle hits your stiletto, the needle is gonna win, or the stiletto is gonna win, your needle's gonna break. Okay, and now we're gonna sew down the second side, and I'm gonna start in a place where I can keep the same guy on top, so that we don't have to sew up and onto another piece. You can see I'm not hanging onto the fabric for dear life. I'm letting the machine do the work. These are bias edges here. You are sewing on the bias, so you don't want to grab and stretch. You just want to get to the end. I'm going to clean up my threads. Okay, we're gonna give it a check, just kind of look and make sure everything looks okay, because the next step is cutting. We're gonna cut down the middle here. And this is where you don't use your magic wand to cut. You're gonna grab a ruler. You can use, I like the shorter rulers. You can use your big 6x24 ruler. And we're just going to go and cut straight down the middle. Okay, and now we're gonna press. We always press as we sewed first. And now we're going to press the triangles back. Don't distort your fabric. This is another place you can push too hard. I'm not really pushing with this hand. Or pulling, I'm just putting just enough so that this pushes back, your top triangle pushes back so that you've got a flat.
So the seam ends up pressed toward the blue triangle.
Yes, the seam ends up pressed towards your background. Okay. And you'll repeat the process with the other guy. But I'm gonna show you quickly how to finish up here. So now you're gonna grab more of your background, and you've got your lines going this way. Because what's gonna happen is we're gonna keep our raw edges together, and when we sew down this line from this corner into this valley between your two triangles here, when we're done, we'll cut on here and see you get a flying geese, okay? So I'm going, and you'll get one on each side.
So where did your lines end up?
Your lines are going from here to here. So I'm gonna stitch from here to here and from here to here. I've got 2 lines.
So the edge next to the background that you already have, the lines line up exactly at that.
Yep, the line should come right here. It should meet exactly with your background. It's a triangle now. Your background triangle here and here. If you've got everything, and we are going for precision here. So I'm gonna real quick press this guy too, because we're gonna wanna talk a lot about how to trim your flying geese when we're done. So again, lay your triangle on, make sure your lines are lining up exactly where they're supposed to, and throw a pin in, and now we're going to stitch on all 4 of those lines. When you move to your machine, make sure that you, because my background square had shifted a little bit, you want all of your raw edges lined up, okay? And then we're gonna stitch. And see, the last stitch ended up right there in that valley, just like we wanted it to. This guy needs it. Now I'll grab my other one, make sure all my raw edges are together. And here, if it starts to shift, grab your stiletto and hold it still. Stilettos aren't just for bag making. Whoop! My flying geese flew away. Okay. Clean them up. Okay. You can kind of give them a visual check, make sure they look good, because again, we're about to cut. And again, we're going to cut from corner to corner. Done. See, we've got very pretty flying geese. Corner to corner. All right, and then again, first you press as you sewed, and then we press back gently without stretching. If you have trouble getting everything to lay flat, I don't have much trouble with flying geese. I have more trouble with half square triangles laying flat. But if you have trouble, or you're getting a lot of bubbles, or you're finding that your fabric presses back over itself,
Or that point where all that comes together. Sometimes that doesn't want to lay.
yeah, here, or here doesn't, yeah, or that doesn't want to lay flat, then you want to grab your folding pen, and your folding pen helps you get nice, I actually prefer it on the other side, I like it here, gets nice flat seams, because a lot of times we get fabric folds like this, and it looks fine until it's on the long arm. And then when it's on the long arm, and the long arm quilter is trying to get it to lay flat, then it gets pulled, and then it gets distorted, and then you end up with lots of other problems. So paying attention with pressing is really, really, really important. And the folding pen will help you make everything lay flatter. You just take it, it's got water in it, and then after you fill the pen, now it does have some design flaws, it leaks, so you just store it this way instead of storing it this way, because if you store it this way, this fills with water. But you screw the lid off and you fill it with water too. There's a line marked in there. And then you put in 5 drops of this stuff. We don't know what it is. We think it's harvested from unicorns. We do think it's unicorn tears or fairy something. So anyway, you put 5 drops of this in here, screw the lid on, shake it up a little. And then, like you saw, I just take it and run it along my seam, And then when I take my iron, it will help it lay really, really flat. You just press it until it's dried. Right here, it's still a little wet. You can flip it over and press from this side. And then, I mean, it just turns out gorgeous. So, okay. So I've got these 4 flying geese, and there's no way they're 3.5 by 6.5, which is what we're going for here. They should be a little bit bigger. So now we're going to use the wing clipper. And the first, you're going to use it in 2 directions. We're going to use it this way, and we're going to use it upside down, okay? You start with this, and you want to start with the hash mark, this little cross, whatever it is up here. And I'm going to show you how to line that up in just a minute. And you need to notice 6.5 and 3.5, okay? That line there, all right? So,
should I come around so they get that?
Yeah, or you want to come right here and I'll line it up this way. Okay, so what we've got here is my 6.5 line is just barely inside over here. My 3.5 is down here. We've got fabric sticking out all the way around. And the X that we're going to use is this one just to the right of the 3.5 line. Okay, right here. So that goes up in the corner, and then you can see there's a diagonal line coming off this side of it. That lays on your seam here between your peach and your navy, okay? So we've got our X, we've got that, and then we want to make sure, it's best if we can make it so the 3.5 is going right into the edge here, okay? So we've got extra hanging off the side and the top. I'm going to turn this mat just a little bit so I can cut a little bit easier. We're going to trim that off, and then we're going to trim across the top. If you have access to Invisigrip, I'm cutting at a really weird angle. Okay, here, back up for 1 second. I'm going to have to get in the way. Okay, that's a hard cut to make, okay? So now what we're going to do is we're going to turn our block around, and now we're using, we just trimmed this edge and this edge. So I've got my 6.5 here, my 3.5 here, and there's a diagonal line coming here and here. We got those lined up so that the V is in the V here, and we're going to try to get the diagonal lines to line up. And they won't, and that's okay. So what do? Well, the other thing I'm going to tell you about this quilt is none of the points have to touch any of the other points. So in this quilt, you can sacrifice this distance here. So you want your diagonal lines to come into the corners down here, okay? So we want our diagonal line to come into this corner and our diagonal line to come into this corner as best we can, while still keeping our 3.5 and our 6.5 lines here and here, okay?
So you're sacrificing the point in this case?
Yep, we're sacrificing the point.
But
it's
we
okay.
want the exact size, and we want the ends of the diagonals to be into the corners.
Yeah, if we can. This one might be just a teensy bit off on this side, but okay, so there's one. So again, I'm going to show you, we've got 4 more opportunities to show you here. Our 3.5, we start with our point. I always start there. And then I'm going to try to do a better job here of making sure this line goes into my corner, both places on the bottom, because I didn't check that on the last one as well as I should have. So I'm a teensy tiny little bit off here, but I've got my diagonals into my corners. So 6.5, 3.5, my point is pretty much centered, and I'm gonna cut here and across the top. This is a very awkward.
Go ahead and turn your thing.
Oh, okay. And then we're gonna turn here. And see, that lined up better this time. So I've got my diagonal lines going exactly into my corners here and on the other side as well. Okay?
Okay.
Okay, so then I'm gonna go ahead and screw it up when I move it.
Sorry about the blur. I don't know what happened. It went to blurry, but I got it back. We're okay.
Okay? And again, Invisigrip is a product that you can put on the back of your ruler. It doesn't make it a perfectly non-slip, but it does make it, slip
helps.
less. Yeah. Okay. All right, one more time here. I've got you can see I'm a tiny bit off again in my point, but that's okay. But my corners at the 3.5, they're coming directly into that corner. My diagonal line cuts in there and it's cutting in here, and that's what we want. So
Go ahead and turn it so we can really
okay. And then when I turn it to cut the second time, I've got, again, my corners are lining up perfectly here. Okay. Whoop. Turn there, and then I can turn it this way.
see. Much easier
Yeah.
if you use the
Much easier if you remember you've got a rotating cutting mat underneath you. Okay, last one, 3.5. I always start by putting that right on my point, then seeing where I'm at the rest of it. Three and a half here. Got my bottom ones. And you want to use your rotary cutter to drag the stuff away, because if it's still attached, you're sunk. So do that before you move your ruler.
So 2 cuts to every flying geese.
Yep. Okay, I'm lined up here and here. Got my corners. There you go. 4 perfect flying geese. What will we do with them? I don't know. But don't let them fly away. Put them in a bag, and here's how you want to keep track of them. You want to keep track of all 4. Again, this month you're actually making green. So these guys. So to store them, I'm stacking them up this color, 4 of them in this color, 4 of them in the darkest color, 4 of them in the light color, 4 of them in the other medium color, and keep them stacked like that, okay? There might be some months when you make more. You might make 1 more set, but otherwise, whenever you have flying geese to make, this is the method you're going to use. You can always come back to this video. You can also always come into the shop. If you're coming in for help, you need to bring your blocks, bring your ruler, bring your directions, okay? And we will do our best to help you, but otherwise, go ahead and make a gaggle of flying geese, and we'll see you back here soon.